Let's take a look at directed reading B for Chapter 1, Section 3 on global winds and local winds. We'll want to be able to identify the relationship between air pressure and wind direction, and we'll also want to be able to describe the global wind patterns. All right, as we go through this, make sure you make any corrections you need to, or give yourself a star for any of those correct answers. Number one, what causes wind? And that's differences in air pressure. So wind always travels from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. 12. Number two, what causes differences in air pressure? The unequal heating of the earth. So different places on earth heat up more or heat up less than other places. So for example, the ocean heats up differently than the desert, and the equator heats up differently than the poles. So there's all these different surfaces on earth, and they heat up differently, and that unequal heating causes differences in air pressure, and differences in air pressure cause wind. Number three, what are the large circular patterns of air travels in called? Convection cells. Number four, what is the Coriolis effect? It's the apparent curving of wind and ocean currents. So because the Earth spins, the air around the Earth spins as well. And that air around the Earth, when it spins, it causes our weather to spin and our wind to spin. We call that the Coriolis effect. Five, you'll want to be familiar with these global winds. It's one of our learning targets. So winds that blow from 30 degrees latitude to the equator are trade winds. Number 6 is doldrums. That's an area where there's very little wind. 7 is polar easterlies. So that's wind that comes from the poles and moves from the east to the west, polar easterlies. 8 is westerlies, and those go from west to east, so they're westerlies. And then the horse latitudes are another area of very little wind. So the doldrums and the horse latitudes, two areas of very little wind. 10, what are the jet streams? That's narrow belts of high-speed winds. So they're way up high in the stratosphere or the high troposphere, and they go zipping around the planet, and they carry a lot of air and a lot of weather with them. Jet streams. 11, what is most likely to cause local winds? A shoreline or a mountain? So if you're living near a shoreline, you'll have wind coming off the water or wind going from shore out to the water. Or if you're living next to a mountain, you'll have mountain air coming down the mountain, a breeze coming down the mountain. And those are local winds because you'd only feel those winds if you were living by a mountain or living by a shoreline. And 12, what are mountain breezes and valley breezes? Those are two different types of local winds. So if you lived near a mountain or if you lived in a valley, you would feel those local winds. All right, so make sure that you corrected any answers you needed to here on Chapter 1, Section 3. And then you can also add to the wiki anything that I mentioned in this video that you think is important. You can write in the margin, and you can also add those things to the class wiki.